Welcome to the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. You can catch us Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on FS1. Here's what this podcast is all about. It's an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the day's show, and there is a lot to get into in today's podcast. Skip says Jerry Jones will make sure Dak Prescott heads to the bench. Shannon claims Dwight Howard is overrated. Broussard tells us why Magic Johnson is better than LeBron. And Joel Klatt feels the College Football Playoff Committee is toying with real life. Plus, should Jeff Fisher be uncertain about his future in LA? Let's debate.
It was a long night for me. It was a long night.
It was a long day for me yesterday, and I'm about to tell you why. For a very different reason than your reason.
I'm sure. Well, let's get it started. Let's start in Dallas. Skip, your Cowboys are on a 7-game winning streak. How about them Cowboys heading into Sunday's game at the Steelers? But the top story is still Dak Prescott and Tony Romo. Jerry Jones addressed the team's quarterback situation yesterday. Let's take a listen.
Anybody with any sense knows that Tony'd like to be playing if they understand what a competitor he is. So that's that. The key thing that I want to emphasize is that we probably are never going to have this totally sorted out. We're going to play it by ear, play it as it comes. We can do that. And to do it really right for the advantage of the team, which we deserve, he's really got to be ready to go at the top of his game. We have the luxury of getting him that ready. And when we do that, then we've got an edge that could carry us a long way.
Skip, what do you make of this?
Joy, Shannon, yeah, you're all excited. Yesterday was a long, hard day for me because it finally hit home once and for all that Jerry Jones is going to make sure that Dak Prescott heads to the bench sooner than later. Way, way too soon for my taste. Jerry Jones is about to make the biggest mistake of his football career, and that includes firing Jimmy Johnson after back-to-back Super Bowl wins, because to me, and I wrote a book about this, Jimmy wasn't going to last much longer anyway. But in this case, I believe that Dak Prescott's Cowboys can at least get to this year's Super Bowl, which would be their first Super Bowl in 21 years, as you continually remind me on this show.
Yep.
21 years. And now Jerry Jones is about to mess that up, if not blow that up. And yesterday on his weekly radio appearance, we just heard, Jerry Jones sent a loud and clear message that he intended to send to Cowboy Nation. Remember, I know Jerry, spent a lot of time around Jerry. He might be a little crazy occasionally, but he is not stupid. There is method to the madness. He knew exactly the message that he intended to send yesterday because he knew Tony Romo is almost ready to return to the starting lineup. So Jerry Jones said in his weekly radio appearance, Tony Romo has really got to be ready to go to the top of his game, and we have the luxury of getting him that ready, meaning Dak has provided that luxury. And when we do that, we've got an edge that can take us a long way, interpretation, much farther than Dak could take us. I think what you're going to have is you're going to see Tony playing really well in practice, meaning this week, okay, and really being what he can be, which in my mind, says Jerry Jones, when he's healthy, which isn't very often, Jerry says, I don't know that I would trade him for anybody, says Jerry Jones. So Jerry Jones is telling you that Tony Romo, in his mind, is the best quarterback in all of pro football, which boggles my mind. As much of a Romo fan as I've been, I surely can't go there. So Jerry Jones is saying that Dak's amazing start has made it possible to take it to the next level with Tony Romo. And I ask you, where's the next level from Dak Prescott? How much higher can you go from 7-1 with the only loss 8 games back, opening day at Jerry World, when a kid fresh out of college, 4th round, Mississippi State, almost beat the New York Football Giants. It was 20-19, and we can go back and forth about whether they really had a chance in the end. I thought they did, so it was very close to being a win for my Cowboys. Mm-hmm. He played well enough, I thought, Dak Prescott, to win that game. Des Bryant did drop a touchdown pass to me in the end zone. That's it. That's your only loss. Then you win 7 straight, and you're telling me that Tony Romo can take it to the next level? When, to me, my Dallas Cowboys have played consistently more dominantly under Dak Prescott than I have ever seen them play in all of Tony Romo's years under Tony Romo. So now, let's get to the why of this. I have let you sort of get away with saying this again and again. You have talked about Tony Romo Jones being like a son to Jerry. Mm-hmm. The truth is, I've let you say that because I wanted to exert as much pressure on Jerry as we could to make him stop this madness. But the truth is, I don't believe it's about a surrogate son here. I believe it's about Jerry Jones, I know football pride. Remember, in 2013, in March, Jerry Jones bet all of his pride and a whole lot of his money and his ranch, as in the former practice facility called Valley Ranch. He bet it all on Tony Romo when everybody said, no, Jerry, no. So he put himself way out there on that football line. And we know how much Jerry prides himself on showing you that he knows football. And to his credit, he did start on a national championship team at offensive guard at Arkansas, just for the record. But now it's on the line, dug in. I'm going to show you that Tony Romo is not just a good quarterback, he's the best quarterback in football, because back in 2013, I gave him 8 years and $108 million and whatever it was, 55 guaranteed. He just said, here, I'm going to give you the biggest contract in pro football because I believe you can take us to the promised land. But Jerry also believes this, and this is where I part ways with Jerry Jones. He is at least as concerned with entertaining fans as winning football games. Mm-hmm. And Tony Romo is far more wildly entertaining than Dak Prescott. To me, I think Jerry's already decided Dak's a little too efficient for Jerry's taste. It's just cut and dried.
No splash.
There's no splash to it at all. It's, we've talked about, Dak and dunk. He'll throw it downfield occasionally, but mainly it's just ball control, grind it out, 12 plays, 75 yards for yet another touchdown, keep the defense off the field. There's no real box office to that except the one-loss record, except the end of the game scoreboard. It says, wait, the Cowboys won again, 7 in a row. Not enough for Jerry. He wants big box office. He wants high risk, high reward. He wants Tony Romo, who's capable of throwing 5 touchdown passes in a game and 5 interceptions in a game. He loves that because it sells. He's all about the business of football as opposed to just winning football games. He is hell-bent on getting Romo back in to the perfect situation. They could be 7-1. They might even be 8-1 after Pittsburgh, though I have my doubts about this game. We'll talk about that later, especially with now this looming over Dak's shoulder. But in the end, he wants Tony in there, not because he loves Tony like a son. He loves the box office appeal. He knows it would make a big national splash, a controversial splash, to throw Tony back into the lineup at mid-year when you are positioned to be the best team in the NFC. You are the best team in the NFC. And it makes me sick because they're that close to being a Super Bowl team. And with Tony Romo, that will fail miserably.
He also said, and I'm going to double down on what you said. He also said, I'm going to play it by ear. When you tell me you're going to play it by ear, it tells me you do not have a plan. See, the plan in the beginning was Dak wasn't supposed to be this successful. See, that's why he came out, because all history shows us when Tony Romo gets injured, the Cowboys collapse. That's why Jerry was front and center. When Tony Romo's healthy, Tony Romo's going to be our quarterback, because all he had was history. And when he looked back at history, he saw what happened when Tony went out.
He did.
You hear coaches, you hear people say, players say all the time, you never want to have a quarterback looking over his shoulder, let alone a rookie quarterback. Dak, don't look over your shoulder because Tony's not back there. Tony's in front of you. He's in the lead now.
He is.
Jerry's made that crystal clear. See, here's the thing. See, Jerry wants validation on 2 parts, Skip. And you're going to like, I really never thought about it. See, he wants validation because, as you mentioned, in 2013, he gave him the $100+ million contract, $55 million guaranteed. So he wants to validate because he said it before anybody else thought it. I can win a Super Bowl with Tony Romo.
He did.
So if Tony Romo is starting, because see, it doesn't have the same validation if he's receives a ring, he's not the starting quarterback. So it doesn't have the same. So, people will say, well, Jerry, you said he could, but he didn't do it. It also gives Tony Romo an opportunity to get to the Hall of Fame because there's how those voters view Super Bowl winning quarterback.
I agree.
They hold those guys to the highest self-esteem because really and truly, Skip, that's really the only position that rings matter. No other position matters for Super Bowl rings like it does to a quarterback. And see, he does that, so now I'm here. I got it. I told y'all I could win with him. I put him back in. We did it. I told you he's one of the all-time greats because what is the all-time greats? What's the ultimate validation for an all-time great, Skip? A gold jacket. That's the ultimate validation. Forget what anybody else says, well, what the Cowboys were this bad or you only won this many games, you only won 5 playoff games. It doesn't matter. The ultimate validation is Canton. Tony Romo comes back in this team, and they win the Super Bowl. So now Jerry gets validation on 2 folds. Skip, I told you it was going to happen. See, if Dak had opened the door and let Tony come in, I would have no problem.
Sure.
Brock Osweiler last year, he left the door open for Peyton Manning, and Peyton was able to walk back in and finish off what Brock had did. Brock was 5-2, but he didn't look good all the time in that 5-2.
Yep.
I have yet to see one time that Dak has not looked impressive to make me think, say, you know what? I think I really need to go to Tony because we can be this, we can be that. How do you're 7-1. And I read the papers too, Skip. Everybody's talking about, well, if Tony Romo had this team, they would be 8-0. How do you know that? I don't like to do that. I don't like to do the, well, if we did this, we did that. All I know, you're 7-1. You're 2 games clear of everybody in the NFC. Jerry, you're going to mess this up because, Jerry, you can't help. There's no one to protect Jerry from Jerry. Jerry is hell-bent on getting Tony Romo back into the starting lineup, and that's if I'm Dak Prescott, I'm like, he's almost rooting for my failure because I've never heard in all my years of being around the game and covering the game, I've never heard an owner say, I would have regret if I didn't win a Super Bowl with Tony Romo.
With that quarterback.
Skip, think about this now. I would be upset. I've never heard that. So that would be the equivalent. Let's just say who's a quarterback that's trying to win and hadn't won in a while. Let's just take any quarterback. Let's just take Cam Newton. And all of a sudden, Mr. Richardson says, you know what? I'd be so disappointed if I didn't win a Super Bowl with Cam Newton. You're going to be disappointed. First of all, winning and disappointment should never go together. Let alone winning a Super Bowl and being disappointed because the guy that you anointed, the guy that you believed in, and want him to provide you with the ultimate validation. I would regret or I have to be disappointed.
Let's take Phillip Rivers in San Diego. He's been so close, so close, and he's played at a very high level. He might be playing at his highest level this year he's ever played at, but no Super Bowl, no validation. But there's no Dak in San Diego. Right. It's still Phillip Rivers or bust, right?
Right. It'll be like when they had Drew Brees. Yeah. And Phillip was behind him, and all of a sudden, and Mr. Spanos would have said, you know what? It'd be such a disappointment if I didn't win the Super Bowl with this guy.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're going to say, I've never heard anybody say winning and disappointment in the same sentence. And whoever apologizes for winning a Super Bowl, Skip, regardless of who your quarterback is, that it doesn't make any sense to me. But you know what? I guess it's not supposed to make any sense to me. It makes sense to one person and one person only, and that's the only person that matters, and that's Jerry. It makes perfectly good sense to him. Skip, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
And I told you he was gonna mess it up, and you say no, he wouldn't. It's going to happen.
I thought he probably would at some point.
But here's the thing, Skip, and you know what? What would be so sad? It might happen within the game. Maybe. Because I can see Dak because you're like, Dak, struggle. What do you mean? So if he struggles, let's just say he struggles for a quarter, you're going to pull him? He struggles for a half, you're going to pull him? I wouldn't do it. But you know what, Skip? He's bet big on a lot of things, and it's paid off. He's willing to bet and not only double down, he will triple down. He's going to push everything he got into the center of the table and says, I'm riding with my guy, Tony Romo. I believed in him in 2013 when I gave him 55 guaranteed. And he said he wouldn't. how is that going to do it? Let's just say, Skip, Dak plays well, and they take him out. And Tony Romo comes in, and they don't get to the Super Bowl because obviously we would crush him if that doesn't happen. But what do you do with Dak? Dak says, I played well enough to be able to start in this league. And now I got to go back to the bench for a year or two?
It would be maybe a couple of years. Yeah.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh, Skip. What about your Cowboys there, Skip? I'm just counting on it. Anything can happen, Skip, because we saw what happened last night. So anything can happen. I'm counting on Joe. I'm counting on Jerry to do right by me, Jerry. Do right by me.
Just remember how much pride is on the line here, because remember, right after the draft, Jerry Jones spoke out about how he messed up in not trading up to get Paxton Lynch, who went to your Broncos. Elway said, we're going to go get him. And Elway got him when Jerry thought he should have gone to get him. So his pride is even more on the line because Dak Prescott, whom they really didn't want, they wanted Connor Cook before him. They missed out on him. I thought they wanted Cardale Jones. Silly me. But anyway, into their laps, out of heaven, falls in the 4th round Dak Prescott. And Dak has made Jerry look foolish. And don't think Jerry doesn't take foolish to heart. Don't think he wants to claw his way out of looking foolish by throwing his guy back in and being able to say, I told you so. Our guy took us to the promised land, not the kid. The kid's fine. We got him on the back burner for the future. My grandkids are taken care of with the kid. You know, they'll be just fine. But now it's about Tony or bust.
You know, deep down, Jerry really believes that even if he had put Mark Sanchez in there with that offensive line and that running back, he would have the same success as Dak Prescott.
You could be right about that.
Skip, you went out, you said something when we were taping stuff for the show.
Before we started.
You said the Cowboys and the Patriots will play in the Super Bowl. You said my Cowboys and the Patriots. You're the only one, no one else, said the Cowboys and Patriots would be in the Super Bowl 51 in Houston. And Jerry, your good friend, the guy, you know him so well, Skip.
Not my good friend, but I do know him
well. You
well.
wrote a book?
I know him.
Skip, it's going to hurt. You were like...
He participated in 3 books that I wrote. Spent many hours interviewing Jerry Jones.
I could have went to Vegas, laid down.
You could have.
And if that would have happened, but you know what? I'd have lost all my money.
You would be nervous about it now.
Because you know why? Because I knew Jerry was going to monk it up.
I agree. Last point. 4 years ago, for ESPN.com, I wrote a column in which I went back and forth about Tony Romo. And again, I love watching him play as much as anybody does. But my conclusion of that column, and you can look it up, was my Cowboys will never win a Super Bowl with Tony Romo at quarterback. That was 4 years ago. Then 3 years ago came the vintage classic Tony Romo special game. And you probably will remember this. It was week 5 against your Denver Broncos quarterback by Peyton Manning at Jerry World. Big national TV late afternoon game.
Over 500 yards.
Remember this? He threw for 506. Did my man Tony Romo, 25 of 32, 5 touchdown passes, and played a clean game until 2 minutes were left on the clock. 2:04 left. Peyton had just driven down for the tying touchdown. It's 48-all, okay? It's 48-all. This is Jerry's... This is his dream game. You couldn't make it up better. You couldn't draw it up better. Made for Hollywood game. 48-all, Peyton Manning versus Tony Romo at Jerry World. And on 2nd and 16 from his 14-yard line, Tony Romo went blind and threw it right to Trevathan. Do you remember this? Just threw it right to him. And I'm like, what? What were you thinking? Who were you? I don't know where he was throwing it. He just threw it. Like Trevathan was like, really? Oh, thank you. And obviously, Peyton and company ran the clock down to nothing and kicked a 28-yard chip shot field goal, 51-48, Peyton over Romo. I can't sum him up better than that. 506, 5 touchdowns, and 1 late interception. Ball game. That's it. That's his career in a nutshell. Now, can he stay healthy for very long now at 36, beat up as he is? I don't know. That would be another big issue. What if he comes back and 2 games in, he's gone again? How would Dak feel about that? He seems mature enough. He'd probably just shrug it off and say, well, we got to pick it back up. But you might just blow up your chemistry and your momentum. Right?
I totally agree with that. I totally agree.
I don't have a lot of capacity today for anxiety, but that gave me a little bit. Pride comes before a fall, Jerry. Remember that. No mercy. LeBron James moved into the top 10 on the NBA's career scoring list over the weekend. But LeBron said his most gratifying play was his blocked shot in Game 7 of last year's finals. and scoring isn't his main priority. Let's take a listen.
You know, for me, scoring it's never been on my list of goals. You know, facilitating, getting my guys involved, rebounding, defending, you know, getting block shots and things of that nature. Always ranked above that, and for me to be in the top 10 with so many great players that's played this game, I don't know how many. I don't know the list of how many guys have played in this league since the inaugural year, but it's just a blessing. It's an honor.
We're joined by our NBA analyst, Chris Broussard. Chris, you've covered LeBron closely for years. You know him well. Has it always been the case that scoring wasn't one of LeBron's goals?
Well, I want to share a story from one of the, many stories I did over the years with him, and I confirmed it again with his high school coach today, who also coached him when he was younger. This gives insight into LeBron's psyche and how he's become the player he is. Drew Joyce, who coached him AAU and high school, when LeBron was 11, of course he's bigger and better than everybody. And like most 11-year-olds at that time, age, you score as much as you can. And Drew Joyce told him one day after practice, he said, look, for our team to be as good as it can be, you need to share the basketball. And maybe more importantly to LeBron, if you share the basketball, guys will enjoy playing with you. And LeBron has said it himself. We know his family background was tough. Mm-hmm. He was a single kid. He wanted family and brothers, to use his word, from his teammates. And the thought that if I share the basketball with them, that's going to make them like me and want to play with me, I think that resonated with him, and I think that's carried throughout his career. So I think where LeBron differs from, say, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, is he's never seen himself primarily as a scorer. He obviously scores. He gets you 25, 26 a night, but he's never viewed it as I'm primarily a scorer. Also, I think what separates him from most big-time scorers is he doesn't score as much as he can.
Right.
Like most guys, if I can get 27 a night, I'm getting 27 a night. LeBron, I asked him once a couple years ago how much he thinks he could average if he just was a small forward that just wanted to score. He said about 35 a night. And I think that's maybe not now, but a few years ago that was true. So I think he's always looked at doing other things, which separates him from many of the other scorers. We've talked about mix between Magic and Jordan. That's really what he is, because Magic cared less about scoring than LeBron.
Right.
I really don't think he cared about it at all. But LeBron's not to that extent, but he's in between Magic and Jordan on that scale.
If you noticed, he said he didn't say it wasn't a priority. He said it wasn't his main priority. There's a difference between the two. If you look at LeBron...
Time out. He said it's not on my list of goals. That was the line that we just heard.
Yeah, it's not. He says, not my... Now, if you look at him, his first 7 seasons in Cleveland, he averaged about 21 shots a game. Since he left, went to Miami, it's down to like 18.3 per game. So you see...
this year, right?
Right. So you see what he's doing here. When he had guys that he felt he needed to score, that even if he shared the ball with them, they couldn't put the ball in the bucket. Well, I need to take more of the onus of scoring the basketball. Once he got to Miami, he had D. Wade, he had Chris Bosh. He says, I don't need to average 29. I don't need to average 30. I can average 25. D. Wade can get his 20. Chris Bosh can get his 18. Everybody's happy, and we win. See, that's the difference between him. That's the reason why you see a top 10 scorer and a top 20 assist guy. That's the only reason, because guys that normally can score, they're not interested in assisting the basketball. Right. He is genuinely concerned about the others on his team, because like you said, when he's 11, he really do like, that's why he struggled his first year in Miami, because he can't be the villain. He likes being liked. He wants his teammates to like him, and he wants the general public. And that's why he's always buttoned up. He always tries to do the right thing. He always has a sense or a pulse of what's going on. And he don't always step out on every social issue, but an issue that he feels that is near and dear to his heart, he will take a stand on it. And when it comes to the scoring, Skip, you look at, he has 43 triple-doubles. Jordan and Kobe have 49.
Combined.
Mm-hmm. So if you look at that, you can tell he's more concerned with sharing the basketball, getting others involved. Jordan and Kobe was more concerned getting themselves involved and says, okay, guys, I'm about to go do my thing. Y'all need to come on with me. LeBron says, okay, here, Kyrie. Here, Kevin, JR, because when I get ready to go off, I'm going to go, and y'all need to be ready to do it.
Okay. I liked your story about the 11-year-old LeBron. But here's the twist to it. You have to be capable of sharing the basketball. And some guys, as you well know, just weren't born with the capability of sharing the basketball. They just don't feel it. They don't see it. Like my friend Rick Barry, who's a great passer and a great scorer for a long time in this league, in the ABA. He always says that's the one thing that cannot be taught in basketball. There are very few. You can count them on maybe two hands who are all-time great passers because they were born with the ability to see it before it happens.
Right.
I've said this from day one about LeBron James, from his rookie year, best passer in basketball. I will put him in the top 5 all time. If I could see him initiate more, because he doesn't always initiate. If every time he initiated the way Magic initiated the Showtime Lakers, where he is the point guard at 6'9", sometimes LeBron is, sometimes he's not. He does different things and depending on the opponent and the situation. But when he initiates, boy, he's right there with Magic Johnson. And sometimes I think he's even more gifted than Magic.
As a passer?
Because he'll throw one where I'll say, how did you see that? Maybe a three-quarter court bounce pass to JR for a layup.
I like the bounce pass on the baseline from one side to the other.
No, I gotta call you on that one because my Spurs do that like on a nightly basis. And Ginobili's pretty good at it. He's right there with LeBron. Trust me. Tony Parker's pretty good at it. But beside that, back to this. I've always said if LeBron decided to be a double-digit rebounder, 10 a night, he could do it. And this year it looks like he's deciding because he's up to 9 a night.
So you think he could average a triple-double?
Okay, we've talked about Russell Westbrook, and I told Shannon to start this show. I got to say, maybe LeBron has at least as good a chance this year of averaging a triple-double as Russell because obviously the rebounds are going to come a little easier for the 6'9", 260-pound guy because he's got that in him. And I've always said from the start, he isn't just a good defender, he is a great defender. Mm-hmm. So, back to the question. Do I think that he used the word never a list of, on the list of my goals for scoring? I'm calling baloney on that because I think he still has cared from the start about scoring. He's got as big an ego as anybody, and when it's time to score, he looks at the average. He cares. He can do both. He can do all those things together. But when you look at his 13 years in this league, he's been top 5 in shot attempts every year for 13 years. You can't tell me you don't care about scoring when you're top 5 in attempts, when you're fighting for shots against Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. The Iverson was in the league for the first 5 years. So there are a lot of no-conscience gunners in there that you're competing with on shot attempts, and he's top 5. And he had a second in the league, a third in the league, and he did lead the league in scoring one year at 30 a game. So don't tell me maybe this year, if you want to just make it now, if you said right now at my age and my stage in my career, I don't care as much about scoring, I'm buying that because Kyrie is a bad man. You know, like you have an option that you haven't had before. But don't tell me for your career you've never made it a priority because you can't just accidentally lead the league in scoring. You just can't.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look, he obviously has cared about scoring.
Yes.
I mean, and I don't think he meant I've never thought about, right. He's a smart player. We know that. Oh. He knows he needs to go get 25 to 30 a night. Yeah. And to Shannon's points, when he had Mo Williams and Anderson Varejao, his next 2 best players, he's got to go get you 30 points or 29 a night. As far as the triple-double, I think this will be the obstacle for him. And I think it'll keep him from getting it because I would like to see him kind of in a selfish way go for a triple-double, get you 22, 10, and 10. Yeah. The rebounds, though, I don't think.
Thompson and Kevin Love.
Exactly. You got 2 great rebounders with you. And if LeBron were to go and try to get 10 or 11 a game, it could cause some problems because you're taking rebounds from those 2. Right. Whereas Westbrook, who I don't think is going to get the triple-double anyway, but you only have Steven Adams, essentially, who you're battling with for rebounds. So I think that
is LeBron a better rebounder, or can he be than Kevin Love? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say if he just put his mind to it.
Well, but see, LeBron is a lot of times on the wing, and so when someone shoots the ball's going to come back close to the rim, and that's where Kevin Love is normally located at. But I agree. I think that's the only thing. When you have 2 guys that can average double-digit rebounds on your team, it's hard to have 3 guys averaging double-digit rebounds on one squad. But I just think, see, Magic, think about it. Magic played his first 9 years with Kareem. Back then, they played inside out. So Magic would come down to one side of the court. Kareem was he'd dump it to Kareem. Kareem throw the sky hook. Or he had Big Game James to dump it down to him. Bron has really never had a legit center or three guy that says, okay, I'm going to give it to James Worthy. I'm going to get out of his way and go. He got Kyrie now.
Are you saying that LeBron's a better passer than Magic?
No.
I think Magic, as good a passer as LeBron is, I don't think he's in Magic's class.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, the no-looks that Magic would do, the way he would find people, that Magic was the best passer ever.
No mercy. Tomorrow, we will be live in New York for UFC 205. Come and watch the show in person with us. We'll be at the Penzi right outside Madison Square Garden. Be there at 8 a.m., and we'll be live at 9:30 Eastern. The Cavs lost their first game of the year last night to the Hawks by 4. Dwight Howard had 17 rebounds and 3 blocks for Atlanta. So far this season, Dwight is averaging nearly 16 points and 13 rebounds a game. We're joined once again by Chris Broussard. Chris, are we seeing a new Dwight Howard this season in Atlanta?
Well, I think that yes and no. I mean, I think Dwight was sorely underrated and underappreciated the last few years.
Really?
Yes. I think
a lot of people in L.A. and Houston disagree.
I get it. Look, Kobe Bryant never catered to Dwight. And you can argue, well, should Kobe Bryant have done that? At that stage of Kobe's career, I think he should have made Dwight a bigger focal point, okay? Mike D'Antoni, we know, didn't want him.
No.
James Harden didn't want him. He wanted him initially.
In the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning. But once Harden became this great penetrator, and Dwight's clogging up the lane. Right. So that's why he wanted Clint Capella in there. So, and we know Rockets management soured on Dwight eventually. Mm-hmm. If you look at his numbers, though, he still was shooting over 60% from the floor. Last year, in his worst year, he shot 62%, 14 points and 12 rebounds a game last year. And that's a bad year. Mm-hmm. And so when he went to Atlanta, first off, his health is better than it's been in the last few years. That's big because his back and his knees were still bothering him in L.A. and in Houston. So that's an issue. So he's healthy now for the first time in a few years. But secondly, Atlanta, when he went there, they said, we want you. We believe in you. Grant Hill was on that train. Mike Budenholzer, the coach, was on that train. Just be yourself, Dwight. We believe in you. You're still a star to us. And that, Dwight, we know his psyche. That meant something to him.
Yes.
Because he knows the Rockets and Lakers didn't believe in him. So I think my point is this with Dwight. He's not going to be what he was in Orlando. But he still can be a top 5 center in this league.
Right.
And still, look, I'm not going to make too much out of last night's game. Cleveland's still the heavy favorite in the East. But Dwight has always given LeBron and his team some trouble because he challenged you at the rim. Even when LeBron was at his height, that bothered him at times. And now LeBron's not the finisher he used to be. So Dwight gives them a physicality and some things that they haven't had where I think they could be the second best team in the East.
Really?
Yes.
I think, as you mentioned, Dwight wants to be loved, and he needs to be at least, if not the number one, at least the number 2 focal point of a team. And what bothered Kobe about Dwight, he didn't think that. See, it bothers Kobe, all that laughing and all that smiling, all that kiki. So he didn't think Dwight was taking it serious because you know Kobe is serious. He about them rings. He ain't about no friend. He's not about no friendship. He about rings. And as you mentioned, he went to Houston. James Harden had just started finding himself. Like, now you mean to tell me that's why I left OKC?
Yep.
I mean, I got away from 2 guys that were dominating the ball and was hindering me. And now you think I'm about to pass you the ball? And first of all, if I pass it to you, they're going to foul you. You're going to go to the free throw line. You're going to make 1 or 2. I trust myself to get to the hole and make 2 or 2. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the things. And I thought he was overrated since he left Orlando. Once he left Orlando, because he was never going to be that guy, especially the way the game is played now. He's not Boogie. He can't go get you 25
so
and 12.
Would you rather have Boogie?
I'm taking Boogie. I'm taking Anthony Davis. I'm taking Karl Anthony Towns. Who else we wanted? I'm taking DeAndre Jordan. Who else we wanted?
I want to hear, but see, I got some issues with that. But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, Karl Anthony Towns is the future at
Anthony
that
Davis.
position. And Anthony Davis. Those two, of course. I would take Dwight over DeAndre Jordan because at least Dwight can score. DeAndre Jordan can't score. I mean, last year I think everything.
by accident.
Dwight Dwight shouldn't be a focal point offensively.
Right.
You shouldn't throw it to him in the block and let him go to work. But with offensive rebounding, running the floor, and the occasional touch on the offensive end, he can get you. He's proven it. The last 5 games, he's 19 points, 13 rebounds a game. So DeAndre's never even sniffed 16 points a game. So I take him over DeAndre. Cousins, great talent. But as bad as Dwight's attitude is, just in a comical way, in an immature way, Boogie, I mean, come on. The dude is a malcontent to the nth degree and a coach killer, and I'm sorry he has not even led a team to the playoffs. I can't give him the props that I can give Dwight because he hasn't ever gotten it done. I would even take him over Hassan Whiteside because he's a little immature too.
If you put DeMarcus Cousins with the right group of veterans, you would have something. And I
don't know what that group is, other than maybe LeBron.
I said before that draft, I would take him over John Wall, and everybody said, you're out of your mind. I would still take him over John Wall in that draft. But back to your point. Look, is Dwight a better fit in Atlanta than Al Horford was? Does it make them a little bit?
He's better than Horford,
yes.
right?
Okay, just overall, he's a better fit for what they did not have.
Right.
But if you're making a case to me that Atlanta is now the second best team in the East, it's over. Let's just call the season over and let LeBron play the finals.
It's over anyway.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That. I mean, who's the second best team in the East?
This is the biggest cakewalk. I can't even make a case.
I agree.
Some nights I think it's Toronto. Some nights I thought it was going to be Indiana, and they just disappoint me. Yeah. Sometimes I think Chicago could be pretty good, and then I don't think they could be very good. Boston,
you're right.
Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Charlotte's off to a good
Charlotte
start.
is right now second, but come on.
All right.
Who they scared?
So my problem with Dwight, and I like Dwight. I saw him at UFC, whichever it was in Vegas, and I had a good talk with him, and I told him I appreciate the fact that he's finally getting to go home, and he seemed like in a new comfort zone. I hadn't seen him before. Like the pressure was off because he's never taken basketball as seriously as basketball tried to take him. Mm-hmm. Because basketball always looked at him as, look at your shoulders, look at you're ripped. But he was always no more than 6 feet 11 inches tall, so he wasn't 7'2" Shaq or 7'2" Kareem or 7'1" Wilt. He's not that guy.
I don't even know if he's 6'11".
I don't either. That's what I said.
Yeah,
you know what? I agree with you. Yeah. And he becomes a fourth quarter liability, and this has driven me crazy about Dwight. He knows I've felt like this. Not only can he not make his free throws, a lot of the guys can't make their free throws, Drummond and DeAndre. Right. But he's never developed that go-to post move like Shaq you talked about, had that drop step, bam, or any little baby hook shot or something. I'm not talking about a sky hook, just some little baby hook. Right. Where you'd say, you have a move where if we're in trouble in the fourth quarter, we can dump it into you and you can get us a bucket. He can't get anybody a bucket. He just disappears in the fourth quarter, mainly because of free throws, but no offensive game. And he wants to take basketball not seriously to the point that the only hook shot, as I said earlier in the show, that he cares about is the half-court hook shot he's taken before the game. Am I right? I mean, he loves that. He likes to mess around. He's playful. He's like still a big kid, right?
Yeah.
And yet he keeps going to places where when they surrounded him in Orlando with all those snipers, that worked.
He never should have left.
Yeah, I know.
He knows
that worked.
He never should have
left. But he had good, when J.J. Redick was just a baby, remember, early on, and Pietrus and Broussard and, the Turgaloo, and you had shooters who, in big moments, would make big shots. So LeBron made the shot heard around the world, and then after that, those snipers took over that series, and they got them all the way to Kobe and Gasol, and then it just sort of went away. And Dwight went away in the finals. Gasol outplayed him in the finals. I thought it was 4-1 L.A. over Orlando. Mm-hmm. But he should have stayed. It was a small market, sort of out of the way, out of harm's way. But then he gets the big money to join Kobe, and it was just predictable. Kobe's just going to take one look and say, no, I'm not. I need somebody with some killer in him, and Dwight's got no killer. Am I right?
At least Shaq was serious sometimes. Yeah. Dwight seems to not be serious at any time, and that if he ran Shaq out, if he didn't want to play with Shaq anymore after he had won 3 titles with him, lost in the finals. Dwight, unless Dwight came in there with a total different attitude, he wasn't going to last longer than he did.
Even if he did, he wasn't going to defer to anybody. Once Shaq left, he was done deferring.
Right.
Yeah.
No mercy. Washington moved up to 4th when the college football playoff rankings were released last night. Alabama remains number 1 after beating LSU on Saturday. Clemson and Michigan stay at 2 and 3, followed by the Huskies. We're joined by FS1 college football analyst Joel Klatt. Joel, you went off on the committee last week.
Yes, that's
so
right.
do you agree with their rankings this week?
You know, I was taught from a very young age that you're only as good as your word. All of us, you know, women, men, any race, creed, religion, anything. We're only as good as our word. So this committee is not good at all because they do one thing one week and do another thing the next. And it's the criteria that they use and then the excuses that they use in explaining some of the things that they do. Did they get it right? In my estimation, yes. The 4 best teams in the country are in the top 4 spots, regardless of seeding, because with neutral site games, it really doesn't matter where you're seated. Right. So did they get it right? Yes. Now, they behaved uncharacteristically harsh against West Virginia, LSU, and Florida. And the reason, and people can say, like, well, does it really matter outside of the top 4? Yes. Yes, it does. And here's why. Coaches get hired and fired based on how many times they're in the poll versus outside of the poll. Coaches get hired and fired based on how many teams they beat that are ranked and teams in the top 10 or when they lose those games. So these are real people with real families that are affected by these rankings. So when West Virginia is not given the respect that they deserve, that's affecting Dana Holgorsen and his entire staff. When LSU moves down 11 spots for playing that great game against Alabama, and A&M only drops 4 spots for getting beat by Mississippi State, I have a problem with the committee because they're toying with real life. These are not fake rankings. People's jobs are at stake, and you have to get it right. So the criteria that you use must be used on a consistent basis, and they're missing on the consistency. But did they get the top 4 teams right? In this case, yes, they did.
I absolutely agree that they got them right, and because these are all unbeaten teams. So when you're unbeaten, I think you should be in a situation. Now, granted, we're looking at Washington's body of work, and we're looking at them like, okay, they beat Stanford, but Stanford is not even close to what we thought they were going to be.
That's right.
They beat an Oregon team that's probably going to get a new head coach. They run up the score on Cal. I mean, really, are we really talking about Cal or anything like that? But that, and you went right to my point. I just can't understand. LSU were the 11th ranked team in the country. They lost 10-0. They missed a field goal. How do you drop them 11 spots for losing to a team that's unranked? And you drop, to the number 1 team in Alabama, but you only move Texas A&M down 4 spots, losing to Mississippi State?
Makes no sense.
So are you telling me that, so I guess when they really, so the odds makers must be going to tell us Mississippi State is what, a 5-point underdog at Alabama this week? Because something is going on I don't understand, Skip. I just can't understand from week to week. Last week they had Texas A&M because they're like, well, look at the strength of scheduling. And now you only drop them 4 spots after they lost to a team that outside of the SEC in Mississippi, you don't even know who this team is.
By the way, I'm going to watch Washington USC just to listen to Joel Klatt.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
It's because I'm not that sold on Washington yet. That's the only reason. I'm just going to listen to Joel because my eye test keeps telling me as I watch Washington, even at Utah, need a punt return to win. I've watched them 3 or 4
with 3 blocks in the back for that punt return.
Yes, they did. I pointed them out, too.
You did?
Them up.
Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to stay consistent in my opinion. I told you a week ago that A&M deserved to be ranked ahead of Washington on strength of schedule. All bets are off now that they lost to Mississippi State, so I agree with your new take. But right now, Ohio State deserves to be ranked above Washington on strength of schedule. They're 25 slots higher on strength of schedule. And I'm going on my eye test. I'm not on the committee. I don't know anybody on the committee. I don't care about the politics of the committee. I do care about what I watch every Saturday morning, afternoon, and night here in Los Angeles. And I see Ohio State, to my eyes, just they look better. I know they had one bad day at Penn State, and they got blown out 17-0 in the 4th quarter after having what I thought was just a prohibitive lead going into that quarter. They had one bad quarter. And after that, what they did to Nebraska the other day was astonishing to me. 61-3.
62-3.
62-3, yeah. That was impressive.
Very.
Okay? And I sat back and I said, I'm sorry, I haven't seen that from Washington. So if we're just going now on the 2nd week out of 6 of these, that's what I would say. That I'm going on strength of schedule and eye test. I'm going Ohio State. But in the bigger picture right now, I also want to take this to a broader level, which is, can anybody beat that top team? LSU played the heck out of the defensive side of the ball. Yep. And it was a one-play game, and Jalen Hurts finally made one play. Yep. It was not called that way. He just dropped back to pass and beat a rush that almost threw him for an out-of-field-goal range sack and split it right up the middle for 21 yards and a touchdown that won the game. But I am also eye-testing the Michigan team, and I cannot wait for Michigan at Ohio State, because Michigan is looking like that team that could beat Alabama, because Wilson Speight, Harbaugh works miracles with quarterbacks. He worked a miracle with Colin Kaepernick that first year, that half a year, and then going into the next year.
He had Josh Johnson at San Diego.
That's right.
He did. And I love him as a play caller, and that Darboh kid can get behind everybody. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at Michigan, the number one defensive team in the country, as a big threat to Alabama.
So you bring up a couple of points, and I think that my answer is going to, unfortunately for you, refute both of the things that you said. One is, you said Ohio State's better than Washington, but a chain, just like a football team, is only as strong as their weakest link. And your resume should only be as strong as your weakest link, because when I'm game planning, I can tell you, though, I'm going to attack your weakest defensive player. Right. And Ohio State has thrown out some real duds on their schedule. A loss to Penn State. They did not play well against Indiana. They did not play well against Northwestern. So I can tell you that they've got amazing peaks, and that Nebraska game was an amazing peak.
Hey, and what they did to my Sooners that night as you were there?
The Sooners were totally blasted by Ohio State, but their valleys are far lower than what Washington produces. Washington is a consistent team, a very consistent team. That consistency should be rewarded and has been rewarded right now with the committee, not only in the wins and losses column, but in the performance column. And that brings me to my next point. The team that most threatens Alabama is a team that's balanced, that can get behind the defense with a wide receiver. You pour into Darboh, I'll point to John Ross from Washington. Washington is the team that is primed to be the team to threaten Alabama. Wow. I'm not saying that they're better than Alabama, but they are primed to threaten Alabama, and here's why. They are incredibly balanced on all three levels of their defense. Great defensive line that produces pressure, athletic linebackers that tackle well in space, and one of the best secondaries that you've never heard of in the entire group of college football. Great corners, which you'll see this week against Juju Smith-Schuster and USC. And offensively, they're as balanced as any team in the country. The best pocket passer in the entire country, Jake Browning. John Ross is an electric wide receiver with 14 touchdowns, second in the country. Dante Pettis has 11 receiving touchdowns, and Myles Gaskin, who, oh, by the way, is the career yards per carry leader in Washington history. This is a team with Napoleon Kaufman in their history. Yep. This team is really good. It's not their fault that their games are on at 10:30 Eastern time. They're a great team. They deserve to be in the top four. They're better than Ohio State right now, and they're the biggest threat to Alabama.
Well, I agree with you. I think Washington is a big threat, and I don't know if they can do anything to get in. But if I'm Alabama, I wouldn't want to see Louisville.
Really?
That Heisman Trophy, yeah, he already got the trophy. Unless he gets lost in the wilderness, or unless some alien comes down and kidnap him, they should start.
It's pretty impressive.
Where's the bus? I can't find the bus to go to the game.
Well, Washington hosts USC, that's won 5 straight, averaging 40 a game. Be sure to catch Joel on that game this Saturday. Thanks for joining us, Joel.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No mercy. The Rams lost their 4th straight on Sunday. Jeff Fisher, who has yet to make the playoffs in his 4.5 years as a Rams coach, was asked about his job status yesterday. Let's take a listen.
No, I'm not uncomfortable at all. I mean, I'm comfortable because I didn't expect to be 3 and whatever we are. Okay, but I'm not uncomfortable at all. I mean, I never look over my shoulder, and so no, we're moving on. Stan and I are on the same page. You know, he understands what we've been through. He's as disappointed as I am at the losses, 2 3-points and a 7-point in the last 3 games, and you know, he understands that, you know, we're competitive and we're doing everything we possibly can to get this turned around.
They're 3 and 5, 3 and whatever they are. Shannon,
you know what your record is. You don't played 8 games. You ain't won but 3. So what the other?
3 and 3.
Whatever we are.
They are 3 and 5. Fisher said he's not uncomfortable at all. Should he be?
Of course not. Have you seen his record? He's never had a winning record. He's 7-8-1, 7-9, 6-10, 7-9, and now he's 3 and whatever he is. We have a saying, Skip. When I was in school, we had a saying: C's get degrees. In Jeff Fisher's case, mediocrity, get you paid properly. Because it doesn't matter what he does. What on this 30, 41-1 says I should still be the coach of this football team? Now, I thought all along, because he transitioned the old Houston Oilers to Nashville. He was over that move. He was the head coach. I get it. So from Houston to Nashville, I thought he would stay on because he was going to be able to transition the St. Louis Rams here to L.A. But now that they're here, Skip, this says nothing. You move up and everybody says, well, Jared Goff, it's not the point. I get that Carson Palmer, when the Bengals selected him in the first round, in the first pick, he didn't play his rookie year. But, Skip, they didn't mortgage their franchise to get Carson Palmer. You mortgaged your franchise for this guy.
You did.
And you're telling me 6 months in, you're not comfortable enough to insert him? You know what Case Keenum is. When I hear his name, I hear backup, stopgap. Nothing about him says long-term. Nothing about him says contender. You'll never mistakenly hear someone say Case Keenum and contender.
Yep.
So you know what he is. And the mere fact that you're 3 in whatever Jeff Fisher said their record is.
Whatever we are.
You still don't have enough confidence to play this young man? Either you are supremely confident, you have reassurances from the ownership, management team that this is the way to go, or you got pictures on somebody. But 30, 41-1 doesn't say anything that you should still hold on to the job. And plus, one more thing, Skip. He's 5 losses away from being the all-time losingest coach in NFL history.
No surprise, because this man has lasted longer than any coach in NFL history doing less than anyone ever.
Ever.
This is a man who has not been to the playoffs since 2008, has not won a playoff game since 2003. We're in 2016, since 2003.
So 14 years. So minus the year he was out of the league for a year.
Yep,
so.
he was.
So
all
we
right.
gave him that.
I'm going to say what I said as we launched the show, as the season was starting. Jeff Fisher is a shrewd operator. Nobody is shrewder dealing with the media and with ownership. Stan, as he says. Stan understands, because Jeff pulls him aside.
What we've been through.
Well, yeah.
What you mean we?
What have you been through? What are you doing? Because you paid a king's ransom, as in a LeBron's ransom.
Yes.
You know, LeBron's worth a lot of money. That was the equivalent of LeBron paying a whole lot of money to go up to get that kid. You're going nowhere. At least now you have to throw him into the fire, because if you were willing to bet that much on him, surely I thought he was the most ready. This is just me, and I watched him a whole lot at Cal. I thought he was the readiest of the quarterbacks that got drafted to play. Obviously, Dak Prescott proved that he was really ready, and Carson Wentz has been ready enough. He's had his ups and downs, but okay. Jared Goff hasn't played a second yet, and for a while he didn't even dress. Are you kidding me? For Sean Mannion as their backup?
For the number 1 overall pick.
You're kidding me. But you know what he's doing? This is shrewd operating. This is Jeff Fisher keeping Jared Goff on the back burner, because then he can say to the media, this is a lost year. It's a honeymoon year for them and back to Los Angeles. Right. But he can say, let's wait until give me a year. Then we'll start to ease Jared in next year and maybe ease him into the third year so that Jeff can keep his job. That's what he's doing. Because if you throw the kid into the fire and they're horrendous the rest of the year, maybe people sit back and say, you know what, Jeff Fisher hasn't been in he hasn't won a playoff game since 2003. Maybe it's time for him to go. But now he just keeps slow playing it into the future.
What about if he throws Jared Goff in and Jared Goff is horrendous? See, what if he gets exposed? Because think about it. What you received when you gave up RG3, the number 2 slot, you just in turn gave that to the Cleveland. Well, that was Cleveland that they traded that to.
Was, yep.
So now you just in turn gave away what you received from Washington. At least RG3 won him a division. He was the rookie of the year. He had some flash. Okay, but if you give up this to get this guy, Skip, it would ruin this franchise. Because you're in L.A. L.A. likes winners. Yep. They like USC football. They like UCLA football. Mm-hmm. They like pro football if you're winning. If you're not the Lakers or the Dodgers, them people not coming to see you lose.
You guys have been saying it all season long. When the Chants from the fans are just going to keep getting louder. No mercy. This is the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast, where we're delivering you an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the biggest topics of the day's show. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, like us on Facebook at Undisputed on FS1, follow on Twitter at Undisputed, and catch us at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, Monday through Friday on FS1. You can find us on Channel 219 on DirecTV, 150 on Dish. Thanks for listening. I'm Joy Taylor. We're back on Thursday from New York ahead of UFC 205. Be sure to tune in. Fox Sports, one of one.